You're listening to the We Are Libertarians Network. Learn more at wearelibertarians.com.
Welcome to the Boss Hog of Liberty podcast. This is episode number 138 of the Central Indiana's favorite podcast. I'm Jeremiah Morrell. Today, I'm joined by co-host Dakota Davis and producer Chris Guffey.
Today's episode features Alicia Criswell, who is a longtime listener and educator from Wayne County, Indiana, and also Jennifer McGowan, who... Explain your title for me, please.
My title?
Yes.
I'm an 8th grade science teacher.
An 8th grade science teacher. We are talking about the hashtag Red for Ed movement that is sweeping across the state of Indiana and the giant walk-in that's going on for the first day of the legislative session on November 19th. That is this coming Tuesday if you are listening to this before Tuesday. So we are going to be talking to these folks about everything Red for Ed, about what the teachers want, what are their grievances with the state of Indiana, and what can be done to solve the problem from their perspectives, the people who are working in the schools and on the front lines, so to speak. We're also going to be talking to them about the history of teachers becoming involved in politics and what makes 2019 different from other years in the state legislature. So make sure you stick around until the very end.
So this show is about our lives in rural Indiana. We're here to push your boundaries and make you think as individuals. Sometimes we'll provoke you. Other times we're going to make you laugh. I guarantee you're going to laugh at us. Mm-hmm. Hopefully you always learn something new. So this show is it's about us and what we find interesting. And this week we said, man, there's an awful lot of red signs in the yards, and we need to figure out what this means.
Yeah, I have my mom works at Tri Elementary, so she's been posting things on Facebook. I've been seeing it everywhere. I'm friends with Rob Kendall on Facebook, and he's been quite the provocateur during all of this. So
our good friend Rob.
Yeah, it was an issue that you could see brewing ever since the spring legislative session. Whenever we were going through that process, and it's definitely become much bigger of an issue this go around. But before we get into all that, we need to thank all the folks who support us on Patreon, patreon.com/Boss Hog of Liberty. This show is funded by you, the listener, and you are the people who keep the lights on in the studio, keep our internet bill paid, and keep the heat somewhat on whenever we invite people.
When I got here, it was 45 degrees, and I cranked it up, and it is probably cracking 60. So
yep, that's true.
It's not teeth aren't chattering. It's okay.
Yes.
We might need to start serving coffee and hot chocolate in here in the winter months, but nobody expected November to be this cold.
We had hot soup today, so that has to count for something. Once again, that's patreon.com/Boss Hog of Liberty. And if you donate at over $50 a month, we promise to give you a shout out at the front of each and every episode. Those folks are Christy Avery, Jonathan Phillips, and all the way from Hawaii, Mr. Craig DaCosta. We also have T-Chip stores online. If you don't want to support the show monthly, but you want to help us pay the bills around here, it's tchip.com/BHOL1, 2, or 3. We have all kinds of different designs. Jeremiah always complains about the second design that I made.
It's just merely wrong.
He complains about fonts and sizes and slants and things, but you know what? I believe that you guys are such big supporters that you can overlook Jeremiah's qualms with the design issues. So
if you do join that Patreon every week after the show, either Thursday night late or Friday morning early, depending upon which version of me was motivated, you get a special bonus episode emailed directly to you.
That's right.
Or it's in your special iTunes bonus account as well.
Right. You get access to a private RSS feed that you can put into your podcast app on your phone, and you will get an ultra premium 30-minute bonus episode.
So we did a fantastic 22 minutes with Chase. 4 minutes were very good, but the rest of it was really, really good. And you got a little bit with Chase Payton, our friend.
That's true.
And Alicia's been a long-time listener, so we asked her why in the hell she likes this show. and then we talked about Chase's new gambling addiction, and if he'll keep his house, and why he killed Bambi. So all of that is there if you guys want to know more on that side. There's been a poll this week, and Chase and Cade both killed deer, and Cade wiped the floor with them.
Yep. Chase is losing. He's performing very poorly. We'll put it that way. So, Jeremiah, you have the first bullet point here. Will someone please explain e-learning days to you?
So this goes back to why the studios aren't cold. We're recording this, and it's like, this is like fake winter. It's like November 14th?
Yeah.
November 11th, and November 12th, I don't know what it was. It was like 7 degrees, and there's 3 inches of snow on the ground. It's a Monday morning. And I think it was Monday morning. Maybe it was Tuesday. It was Monday.
Something like that.
And I don't know. The days all run together. I don't have to go to school anymore, so it doesn't bother me. But it went from a 2-hour delay to an e-learning day. And I think last year was the first time that I saw e-learning days be a thing. And you've got teachers here that can help explain for somebody that graduated high school in 2001, what the heck is an e-learning day? And does everybody...
High school. He was homeschooled.
two college
Every
degrees.
day was an e-learning day.
2 college degrees. It's not true because we barely had electricity. I grew up on the farm on Messick Road. It was pretty rural with the goats. Alicia and I knew each other in high school. We didn't talk about the Patreon side, but we used to show goats competitively against each other. I was cutthroat. Anyway,
Jer showed dairy goats.
I did show dairy goats, and she showed leathers. They were incompatible. They would never work. An e-learning day. Now the kids all have iPads, I guess, or computers or something. I don't know. They have internet.
Yes. Well, it kind of depends. And kind of each school does an e-learning day differently. I can speak for Newcastle. Now, at the middle school and the high school, our kids are 1-to-1, which means they have computers and they take them home. But at the elementary, they haven't gotten to that point yet. So they have, the older they get in the elementary, like toward 5th and 6th grade, they have computers that they allow them to take home. But they have like packets and things they send home with the kids. That they
just
work
in
on
case they know they're going to have an e-learning day.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And for the middle school and the high school, when it's called an e-learning day, we post on the internet. I post mine on Google Classroom. Sometimes they post them on a program called Moodle, and we give them assignments that they complete. And then because of, sometimes the economics of Newcastle, not everyone has the internet. So our students have 4 days to complete the assignments that were assigned Tuesday.
So they can stay over school or make it up
Absolutely.
Anytime they have internet access.
Yes.
If they come downtown Newcastle, we've got internet on the streets. If you go to the library,
go to McDonald's and get a Coke. Yes.
They've got some options.
Yes.
So the thing I've been feeling bad about is my friends that teach at Knightstown. Because it seems like all of these schools are linked together, right?
Yeah.
So because of the Career Center, I assume is why. So it's like all of the Henry County schools. We've got 6 school corporations that are all tied together with this blood pact. And if they're, I don't know.
We sacrifice goats at this meeting, maybe. I don't know.
So with this blood pact of a calendar, so it's like if Newcastle says we're having an e-learning day, then Knightstown has to have an e-learning day, but they don't have that yet, or at least they didn't last year.
I don't think they have it this year either.
So if every time that an e-learning day happens for Newcastle, those poor bastards in Knightstown have to go to school like until July, right?
Because that's kind of what stops.
That's the trick of it.
We don't have to, if we have the e-learning day, then we don't have to stay.
So there's kind of a trade-off with the e-learning day, because whenever I was in school and you had a snow day, then you got to goof around all day.
Right.
Now you have the assignment.
The kids have to work
to do.
But the give is you don't have to make it up at the end of the year.
My children that live at our house do not do jumping jacks and join us when we have an e-learning. They're like,
So do you have to prepare the lesson for an e-learning day? Mm-hmm. So is it, so you still have work to do on an e-learning day?
Oh, absolutely. And we have to be available.
Okay.
So they email us if they have any questions. And I mean, you're supposed to have like office hours, but everyone I know answers the email when they get it. You know, like you can go, I'm only answering emails from 10 to 2 or whatever, but everybody just answers when
you're just working, right?
Right.
Yeah, so we did put it out when it was announced on Monday. We put it out to our audience and got some feedback and said, "Hey, what do you folks think in the community?" Sean Rao, attorney and guy that's been on before, he called it a win-win-win. He said snow days are inevitable, but it allows you to not have to make up the days because everybody gets to do it. Newly elected city councilman Mike Guffey commented and said he loves it. He enjoyed the long summer vacations and thought it was great for kids to be able to do that. Zach Burcham, who was our guest last week, called it a win-win with more and more severe weather happening and keeps kids from having to go into June. Kelly Riggs lives here in Henry County, and she says she hates them because they don't have access to the internet.
Yeah,
so they have to use cell phone hotspots. So yeah, it is a mix, but we've talked about that too. We've spent a lot of time on the show talking about rural broadband and trying to
had a full episode that just focused on options to get internet to your house if you are a rural county citizen.
So cool. So next week, it sounds like there's maybe some more schools that have an e-learning day coming up.
Yeah.
Some of the school corporations have been talking about doing an e-learning day, and some school corporations have said, we're just going to shut down. And there's a major event coming up on Tuesday. What's the date, Dakota? Is it the 18th?
It is Tuesday, November the 19th is what I have written down. And I do have a bullet point on here. If you're a Patreon member, then you also get access to the show notes that we read off of during the show. And there are a couple of links on there. I think they're both Indy Star articles about the Red for Ed movement in Indiana. And that's where a lot of this information came from. But you guys probably know more about it than I do. So if anything in here is wrong, then feel free to correct. But basically, we wanted to talk about what is Red for Ed? What is the movement itself? What are you guys going to the statehouse for on November 19th?
We'll start with Alicia. You're a parent, right? You've been a teacher in this area before. You grew up here, and now you work for Purdue University in Wayne County. But you've taught in public schools in a number of different areas throughout the state. So you're a subject matter expert, right?
I don't know about that. Are any of us really? I don't know.
I'm not claiming to be an expert at anything.
You are our in-house authority tonight.
Okay. Oh, man. So I was educated as a teacher under the standards, which was kind of a new, sort of phenomenon as far as like teacher education goes when I was doing my undergrad work. And, we sort of felt like there was a lot coming as far as changes in the world of education. And I think we were well prepared for that. But after graduating with my undergrad and taking my first teaching position, the climate of education for teachers right now, you've got to want to do what you're doing. You come to work for the kids, and it's been a long time coming, I think, to finally reach kind of the climax or the point that we're at now where, teachers they're finding their voice and they're finding unity in each other, and getting support from community and parents and students and local officials. And I'm just really excited to finally, I wish this had happened 4 or 5 years ago. I think we would have retained a lot of good educators who left the profession.
So that's been, from this, watching from the outside, that's been one of the most noted things is the folks that I grew up with that went into teaching for a year or two and then they jumped out. So it's similar to you, right? You taught in the public schools for a couple of years and then you found you're still an educator, but in a different medium.
Correct.
My wife was a teacher in Mooresville for third grade for 3 years. And third grade is a very difficult year because it's the first year of standardized testing, incredible amount of pressure that comes with that. And she found that she was making more money and had less stress in the private sector doing something else. So she's using her degree, but in a different way. And it's happening all over the place where I have countless friends of mine, and I know it's anecdotal, but I also know that it's the reality. Folks get into teaching and they don't stay 10 years from the day they start. They're often not there, Jennifer.
Yeah. My sister, she is going to school at Ball State to become a educator, and she received a scholarship from the state of Indiana, and due to retention rates, part of the strings that are attached to the scholarship are you have to teach in the state for at least 5 years. Otherwise, you have to pay that money back. So that's part of, I guess, an incentive to make sure that she stays teaching within the state and goes for what her degree is, because there is an issue with it.
I think 94% of all schools, public schools now in Indiana, are expressing some sort of a teacher shortage.
Oh, absolutely. Wow. Absolutely. This is a rumor. I don't have confirmed fact, but, I know Ball State possibly graduated one math teacher this year. Mm-hmm. And that's the high school math level.
Well, but I mean it's math.
Yeah, I teach science for sure. But,
listen, I don't think you're going to get a successful podcast and entertainer with a math degree. That's not going to help anybody.
Yes, we are losing teachers. We're losing, not only are we losing teachers from the profession, but no one is going in to become a teacher. And that's for lots of reasons: standardized testing, lack of pay, lack of, I hesitate to say lack of support, because Newcastle has been in recent years has been very good to their teachers, or is trying to be good to their teachers. They're trying to turn it around. But the laws and the legislation that have come down that are affecting the classroom, I don't think they understand at the statehouse what that's doing to children.
And we had Melanie
adults,
Wright on, who's a teacher and a state legislator, and we had some of these conversations with her. She's in the minority on the Democrat side. We have a system that's set up that I don't think, it's like a camel, right? It's not perfect, and nobody really likes any of it. Nobody likes the way it works. You have a Department of Education, and then you have a state board and a state superintendent, and they set rules and expectations, and then that flows down to a local school board who has to try to make sense of it.
Right.
And then they have a funding formula that is very complicated and convoluted.
And changes almost every year.
And you have legislators that come in and want to make a difference. So then what you see is every 2 to 3 years, there's a new adjustment that's made. And then school boards that are not professional, they're locals, right? But they're not professional educators, not professional administrators. They're trying to make sense of it and get experience. And they're the ones that are hiring administrators that are then responsible for staffing a school and delivering services.
And then you throw onto that an economic crisis.
Exactly.
And a drug crisis, and kids coming, from environments and homes, and more kiddos with IEPs and special needs.
Absolutely.
And
explain for the layman out there, what's an IEP?
So an individualized education plan.
So you have a student that needs something,
some
special.
sort of special service.
Okay.
Or special accommodation.
I'm so glad you guys explained that, because that's what my girlfriend does, and she says IEP to me, and I never knew that.
For producer Chris, what's an IEP, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You really didn't know that one yet.
I didn't.
There we go.
Surprised.
These past few months, you've just been nodding your head.
Yep, I understand.
So yeah, and this is a conversation that we've been having all week amongst ourselves, is that education is obviously very important to all of us, but it's a personal issue for all of us. Our neighbors and our teachers. My wife was a teacher, Dakota's sister, Chris's girlfriend. Everybody is connected to it. You don't have to go very many degrees to have this be very close to home. Dakota's got his first coming along the way, so he'll be sending somebody off to try.
Thanks.
He'll be sending somebody off to try here in about 5 years.
Yeah,
little Jackson.
it's true. Unless
you go private school.
You know what? This just doesn't get figured out, and we have to do e-learning.
And schools aren't just for education. That's part of the situation too. I mean, on our e-learning day, we still have the lunches, the cafeterias open. We're going to serve breakfast and we're going to serve lunch.
That's great. That's really awesome.
Mm-hmm. Oh, thank you. But I mean schools serve for not just education, but to support a community. And I think sometimes that's
when it used to be more so
lost.
as well. You see, the school used to be
them.
Yeah, the school used to be the school along with the local church used to be the two largest charitable opportunities within your community. Whenever we had, Spiceland Town public school, we had Strawn had a public school, Louisville had a public school, and all of a sudden the classroom sizes get bigger, the teachers, the pay stagnates, and we consolidate all of these schools into these giant conglomerations. And it's created a host of issues, and then all of a sudden we stop. I don't want to say we stop giving them the proper funding, because there is quite a bit of funding that goes towards schools already, but we've created an issue at the state level to where we've made the schools larger, but we don't provide them with the opportunities, and the funding that we do give them, there's a multitude of strings that are attached with it. And it's become a major issue, and now schools, they can't afford to become those institutions that they once were inside of your community.
Okay. So everything...
That was my rant.
Everything is broken.
That was a good rant.
Everything is broken. Jennifer, you're involved with the teachers union. So you're a vice chairman in charge of stuff, basically, is your official title?
Yes.
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 What's your list of demands? What do you want? What do you got? You guys are going to the statehouse next week. Are you meeting with legislators, or are you just going to go show up in force and listen? What's the message that you want changed?
Well, I think
the airing of the grievances begins now.
Right, starting now. I think we do. There is a lot of money that goes into education, but part of the problem is it's not going into public education. Some of that funding is being shifted to charter schools and voucher schools and private schools. So when they say 50% of the Indiana's budget is going to education, absolutely it is. Mm-hmm. However, public schools are not receiving some of those funds. Like last year, we did get a bump in up until then.
It was like a 2.5%
Yes,
increase
2%.
that hit the schools.
But
didn't necessarily come to salaries, but it went to the corporations to do what they chose.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. But it's very easy to generalize and say, well, everybody got a 2%, but then they changed the formula as well. So when they changed the formula and we got the 2% increase, they changed it. So we had lost money
because more suburban areas may have gotten more money, or whatever happened with that formula and the way that it dropped out.
Right. Okay. Newcastle kind of broke even. We may have gotten a little gain, but not very much. But at the same time, 10% increase to charters, vouchers, and private. And though I'm not dissing those schools, I'm not saying those schools aren't good schools. But what I'm saying is I don't know that taxpayers know that their tax money is going to fund private schools.
So this has been an interesting conversation for a long time as well, because you have multiple views. You've got folks that say, you know, a kid's worth $10,000 a year in revenue, or whatever the number is, attach it to the child, and whatever school that they choose to go to should get it. And then you have another crew that says, well, it should only be for public education. If you want to do it private, then go on your own. And then you have a third line of thinking that says, well, if you want to attach it to the kid, fine, but now you have to deal with the standards that come with the states.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Right. So then that's been big with the Ron Colley conversation, and they're getting involved with staffing and policies of the school corporation. So those are all major issues that have been in the conversation for the last couple of years as well.
Well, and that's part of the thing too, is that they are getting public funds, but they aren't held to the same standards that public schools are held to. We have to take all children, and I love my children. I wouldn't trade them for anything. But private schools and other schools don't have to take everyone. They can kind of pick and choose. So for them to get state funding and not be held to the same standard, because part of our funding is based on how we score and how part of my raise.
Right. So the teacher funding, what was the famous line whenever that was first talked about in the state of Indiana? Mitch Daniels said something about it. Gosh darn it. I'm not going to be able to think about it. Please continue.
He gets so nervous with all these teachers around. He's not been out of school long enough to not get worried. Gets flustered.
Merit. It was based.
Merit pay.
Yeah, merit pay.
I don't think I would be not concerned at all with merit pay. Studies have shown that public. Oh, so sorry.
It's all right. It's all good.
How's this?
It's just more directional. Yeah.
Feel free to move it.
If we tip it down just a little bit for you, it'll probably help.
Okay. Merit pay would be fine. And studies have shown that public school teachers are both, the term is qualified and highly qualified. And we fall under, almost all of us fall under that, except they throw in test scores. And what's proven time and time again is test scores are not majorly influenced by the teacher that you have. Test scores are influenced by whether or not you get free and reduced lunch. So here in Newcastle, we're 47% free and reduced lunch. So that can give you an idea of how our test scores fall and the funding that comes with that. Carmel kids have very minimal free and reduced lunch, and they are going to score better than we do.
Yeah, and that's an interesting conversation to have, talking about free and reduced lunch. You have low-income communities that a lot of kids might qualify for free and reduced lunches, and there's been a whole lot of talk about it, and it's sort of a sensitive issue because you don't want to talk about, you don't want to be like, was it Joe Biden whenever he had the gaffe that said poor kids can do just as good as white kids? You don't want to be you don't want to say something like stupid like that and come off as a complete and like a bubbling idiot. But it's a conversation you need to have whenever you're talking about test scores, free and reduced lunches, low-income communities, and the time that parents can spend with their kids whenever they're at home.
Absolutely.
And the correlation between all of those things. You don't hear a whole lot about it. You hear a whole lot about, if you listen to WIBC, you listen to talk radio in the state of Indiana, then you hear, well, the schools get 52% of the state budget. And you know what? It seems fair to me that they should get paid based on how they perform, because I get paid. If I don't do my job correctly, then I won't get a pay increase.
So is the request, let's get rid of what we'll call high stakes testing? Is that the request when you go next week?
I think yes. They spend a lot of money on high stakes testing.
Folks say you end up teaching to the test, right? You know what's going to be on the test, so that's what you're judging me on, so that's what we're going to try to pass.
Well, and my science teacher, when I went through the middle school, said, you can't fatten cattle by weighing them. And I was like, I don't even know what that means. And she was like, I'm from Pittsburgh, so this is a bit of not farming community like the Tri-High area, but she lived on a farm, and she said, well, when you go to weigh the cattle to take them to market, it's very stressful, and sometimes they lose weight, and so you don't weigh them very often because you're taking away feeding time. Well, that's kind of what happens with education right now. We teach to the test, we prep them for the test, and we could be educating them.
Mm-hmm.
Actually teaching.
Yeah, actually like teaching.
Mm-hmm.
That's so. Is that part of the whenever you're trying to talk and have these discussions with the folks that are creating the laws, creating the codes at the statehouse? Is it? I guess you could be in one of two camps. Either we still want the state to provide standards, but we want you to change those standards, or is it a conversation of drop your standards and let's adopt it at the school corporation level?
So a lot of those standards are federal.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with structure or a direction. And I kind of think that's what they were meant to be to begin with, was like a
This goes back to No Child Left Behind from the Bush administration 15, 20 years ago, right?
It does.
So I don't think anybody's saying, hey, toss those out the window.
I think that was a thing 10 years ago. And we all kind of adapted.
Yes, adapted and adjusted. And
But the issue that's really got everybody fired up right now is, I guess, the replacement of I-STEP that happened 3 years ago.
Well, they want us to, we want to be held harmless, which is a very strange way to say.
That's a contractual statement, right?
Isn't that weird?
That's like an indemnity clause.
I want to be held harmless. I wasn't even sure what that meant at first.
And we were looking as 4-H educators just a week or two ago at the test windows, trying to plan some stuff for early summer, and pulled it up on the DOE's website. Those test windows are basically the end of March through the end of May.
Absolutely.
2 full months.
Absolutely.
And I mean, we think about 52% of the state's budget, right, is spent on education, but that doesn't all go directly to the schools. I mean, what are we, $10 million around about that they're spending on on the testing.
On testing. And many of those companies aren't even in Indiana. I mean, so they're not putting money back even into the state. They're shipping it.
When we went through that debacle 2 years ago where it turns out they were scored incorrectly,
Yes,
they were written
that was a good
oh,
time.
boy.
Yeah.
So I remember whenever the changes to the testing happened, and people were saying it's much worse than ISTEP, and I thought, I remember ISTEP. And ISTEP is pretty much the middle school equivalent to Hell Week in the Navy SEALs.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it is.
How can you make it worse?
This last year's test was, as you took it, it got harder. Like if you got answers right, they would.
It was like it was curving
Bump you to
towards
the
the
next
student.
level.
Yeah, they would up you to the next level. So, like, my daughter came home and she was like, I think I failed that. I said, I'm sure you did fine.
So it's like, is the sky blue? Yes. What is the slope of a line? Like,
Right.
Yeah.
Do fish breathe with gills? Yes. What is a Pythagorean theorem?
Right. Yeah.
Just like that.
Y equals mx plus b. Yeah.
Nicely done. You can do math.
No, I
You should have
can't.
taught it.
No, yeah, that would be trouble for the entire community.
So everybody was adapting to that. It's the testing hours were longer. Like we start at. Sometimes we go 2.5 hours. I mean, that's a long time by the time I get my 6th hour and those 8th grade boys at 6th hour, we get up and do stuff because they've been sitting all day. So for all of those kids to sit in that room and try to answer questions on a computer for that long, and we try to break it up.
So are they getting science questions in your class that are tied to your subject matter, or they're getting questions that are just for their grade level and they're getting whatever? Like the testing time, I'm a total novice and haven't been to school in a very long time. So I'm the village idiot, so I'm just asking.
Okay.
I don't know how this works.
In elementaries, they test all of it.
Right.
In middle school, right now, they test English, math, and social studies. And there is an essay that goes with the English, and there's usually 2 days of math and 2 days of English and a social study. So probably every day for a week.
But I think, too, what people don't realize is then that Jennifer doesn't have her students during that time for science.
Yeah. No. Everybody's testing.
Yeah.
The whole school is testing.
Right. And everybody's doing it at the same time. I stepped testing whenever I was in school. I'm not a good test taker to begin with.
Yeah,
I'm not
No.
good
It's like
with
the white. You go
classwork.
to the doctor's office and your blood pressure goes up because of the white coat, right?
Right,
It's the same
especially
thing.
when you've
Same
got
exact thing.
kiddos, first,
Yes.
second, third graders who are realizing my teacher's going to get fired if I don't do what. You know what I mean?
No.
Now
it's
her job
awful.
depends upon me
Yes.
knowing.
But they're
Yes.
starting to realize that,
Absolutely.
and
they tested in
so
kindergarten
sad.
this year, and they're
So
babies.
when it
And-
comes to standardized testing, is it something that you think is it something that you think the idea is good, and the test itself needs to be changed, or we just need to do away with standardized testing altogether?
I think they're trying to use it to measure something that it's not meant to measure.
Mm-hmm.
Do we say, listen, the kids that are wanting to continue their education and go on and do other things, we already make them take the SAT and the ACT,
Right.
and that's good enough.
Really,
I mean,
in real life,
That's my opinion. As it stands
We're
right
gonna,
now.
we can have two conversations. We can talk about our perfect utopia world,
Okay.
right?
Right.
And then we can
Okay.
talk about the list of demands for what y'all are going to try to accomplish.
We're
next week.
libertarians. We live a lot of our lives in a utopia.
If you ask me, right, there'd be no federal Department of Education. There would be we wouldn't do this at the state level at all.
Mm-hmm.
And then you would have local taxes that would pay for your local schools. You'd elect a school board that cares, and then we would hire teachers and trust them to teach the student body, and they are the
What
ones
an
that decide.
idea.
Oh my
and
gosh!
and they would be the ones that would
wanna
decide,
come here
hey,
every Thursday.
and they would
This
decide,
is awesome.
hey, guess what? Yeah, you're good enough to move on to the next grade. And when you're done, you've graduated from Newcastle, whatever, Chrysler, or Maxwell High School, we call this at this time, right? Whatever auto company we're happy with. But you get your degree and you move on, and then if you get out in the marketplace, you can go to school. Or you can
That's
go to
why
work.
I personally, whenever everybody was freaking out about Betsy DeVoe becoming the whatever her job is, I was actually like, this is kind of hopeful for me, because hopefully everybody realizes that your money gets wasted there regardless of who is in charge. We're sending all this tax money to the Federal Department of Education whenever it should be going to the schools that we're paying for. But instead, we lose millions of dollars paying for bureaucrats in Washington that just make the jobs for our teachers way more difficult than it has to be. But I understand that that's a very purist and idealist way of thinking, and it's probably not going to ever happen that we don't have millions of dollars going to the federal government for the Department of Education. So, with that being said, we're having the discussion, and the discussion is starting with the Red for Ed rally of what do we do on the state level to try to fix our issues here, and the people who we can get their attention.
So, get rid of the state testing, or don't judge me on it, right? If you want to have the testing, fine, but don't hold teachers to that. And then
10% of people test like that. Well, I mean, you can't gauge an entire. It's not fair, and it's not accurate.
Well, it's demeaning, right?
Yes.
I mean, many of us have master's degrees.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. I do too.
But it's like, well, your kids didn't really test that well. So we're going to make you do, you got a master's degree. We're going to make you do 15 hours of professional development stuff, per year, new licensures every 5 to 10 years. But, we got to work on those test scores.
So what is that really? Is that the penalty if your students don't test well? Is the 15 hours of professional?
Oh no,
development?
everybody has to.
Everybody has to do that.
Everyone has to.
And they've added this year, which I thought was really great, that you have to go into
community service, right?
You have to go into a business and follow them around, and so
you have to act as an intern.
Absolutely.
We are offering internships here.
I want one right here. Do that.
You just come in, we'll sign our names.
But when I read that, I thought, this is a joke. You've got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
You have to work for it here.
What do they think we're doing?
I don't know. I don't know.
I always said, when I was in the public school setting, if you want to know who your good teachers are, go ask your kids.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure what my 8th grade would say right now.
They can tell you.
Depends on the day.
Ask them on a snow day.
That's right.
Yeah.
How much e-learning they got.
All right. So then if that's the case, then you just want more money thrown at it. Because if you look, if you look at the state of Indiana, particularly new teachers coming in, the wages are not competitive with the private sector or where you would go somewhere else. So that's been one of the other issues with the burnout. And that's why one of the reasons Sarah's not teaching anymore.
Right.
That and the fact that she had to have her kids pass 24 arbitrary questions to go on to the next grade and to keep her job. She makes more money and has less stress because she's not a teacher anymore.
Absolutely.
So finding a solution for wages.
Yes. We are 51st in the salaries of teachers now, which I think that means we're below Puerto Rico. Is that what that means if we're 51st?
I was wondering if it was Washington, D.C. whenever I saw that.
Washington, D.C. Okay. I teach science, not geography. Just throwing that out there.
So how do you respond to the people like we said earlier in the show? Rob Kendall from WIBC is going to be on the show next week, and we're going to be talking about the same issue, Red for Ed. But this is going to be he's going to come on after the rally is held. And he is going to have based on his Facebook profile, is going to have very much opposite opinions of both of you guys. And he's going to come on here and he's going to say they want more pay, but they have vacations during the year. They have summer break. Most schools have 2 weeks off for spring break, and they still get vacation time.
My wife had a second job working at the pool. So,
and I think that
I have a second job right now. Yeah, I have a second job right now.
Yeah, and my dad's best friend is a teacher, and he mows lawns. So it's
and I coached like 3 sports. And was a school
class
sponsor, and whatever other
I work in the library
you could-
on Tuesdays and Thursdays for activity bus. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we
Just loafing.
yeah, just hanging out.
Hanging out.
Yeah.
I'm trying to censor myself because
I'm going to say for you is, Rob, that's ridiculous sentiment. Most teachers have second jobs to provide for their families, and you talking to a microphone for a living.
And we spend hours and hours and hours grading and hours and hours and hours prepping. We had a basketball game last night for our daughter. And on the way home, I was like, oh crap, we have to stop at Kroger because I've got to buy cereal because we're doing boar models with Adams tomorrow. And so we're running through Kroger at 10:30 at night to buy these bags of cereal to come in. So that, we don't work just from 8 to 3. We work
You work
hours.
until it's done, right?
Yes,
And
absolutely.
the amount of parenting that we do.
Yes,
I mean,
absolutely.
I was parenting high schoolers
Yes.
at 22 years old. The
Yes.
best I could.
Yes.
At 22 years old. People don't look at that. They don't look at that. And you look at those starting salaries and it's sad. I don't know that anybody else, how do you argue coming out of a school with a 4-year degree, looking at that starting salary pretty much anywhere and saying, that's a good gig.
But I get my summers off. Well, you have to work to get so you can eat during the summer. You know what I mean? You have to compensate, and you use your summers to make money that you didn't make during the school year and
or
do
that
laundry.
you spend on your kiddos.
Yeah. Yeah.
Put back in your classroom.
So there's also a motivation issue as well. I don't want to say motivation issue, but you kind of get cut off at the knees as well, because once you get to the end of the 12 years or 13 years in school, the kid can still pass on waivers, right? So even though you've done everything you're supposed to do, and they get to the point where, we didn't accomplish everything, the school can just go ahead and graduate. Is that right?
There's a lot that goes into that.
That kind of involves IEPs.
It does.
And attendance. I mean, there are things that in order to get the waiver, you have to have good attendance. You have to have an IEP, right?
Yeah. You still have to achieve a certain grade point average.
Right.
There's certain expectations and benchmarks
But like
you've got to be able to check off.
But the test scores aren't as influential in that situation, but you don't graduate with a diploma.
Correct.
You get a waiver.
Yeah.
And that's something different
a
than
certificate,
yes.
essentially.
So you can go home now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. A truancy officer isn't going to come after you.
Right.
As teachers, do you guys believe that the vast majority of these problems would be solved if the funding was still in place at the state level budget and whatever we get from the federal government, but they removed all of their strings and just let you do your job?
I mean, I think like any other job, there's got to be a level of accountability there, and I would expect it.
Yes.
Or do you-
Absolutely.
I guess, do you think that 52% of the state budget is enough to keep schools running properly if some of the issues that we've talked about?
Oh,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yep.
It's not more money. It's stop telling
It's
me
how
what to
it's-
do with
right,
it. Right.
And maybe not be spending $10 million of it on testing companies.
And it
I'm
seems
sure,
like
is it only 10 million? That number for the state of Indiana, that seems alarmingly cheap.
I know. Yeah.
I think it's
there may have been more zeros than that.
it's
10 million
it's a
seems like
lot
a
of
bargain.
money.
it is a lot of money. You know what? I'd take 10 million.
Me too. To me, that seems like it's a large
We
chunk
can
of
split it
money.
4 ways at this table and be
that's
okay.
right. The four of us, we can start writing these
I'll write
tests.
you a hell of a test.
Hey, guess what? I didn't go to college, but that doesn't seem to matter to you now, whoever the test writers are. But
They certainly want your money to pay for it.
so, and I guess, and one thing that we kind of skimmed over, we didn't really talk about it earlier, was the disparity between which schools get the money. And I feel like so we already have large disparities in Carmel property taxes versus Newcastle property taxes and the money from those that can go to the schools. But then you have
Joy Schaefer's in the chat saying it's $100 million, by the way.
I knew I missed a zero.
One
Hey.
2 or 3.
I think you were close. It works.
And actually,
Math is not my thing. Either.
and I will warn a lot of our
Geography I
viewers.
had trouble with as well.
Because I don't know how Facebook works today. There are 2 different chats going on. I have a live watching
did you
party.
do?
I have a watch party I started, and there's an actual
Okay,
Facebook
boomer.
Live that's going on.
Nice.
So when I shared it, Facebook, I got a new phone this week. I have
So
all
you
kinds of
have more
complaints.
going on.
So I have you have one phone over here that's my watch party that I accidentally started that like a dozen people are watching, and then there's 20 some more people watching on the Facebook Live.
30.
And I'm
30
I'm just bouncing back and forth on multiple devices. It's a complicated life as a host. I had a
I think
producer
you're
to do
handling
all
great.
of this work for me, and I'm still working hard.
One thing that I've thought about recently is if the money is at the state, the money coming from the state is paid to the state from taxpayers all across the state, then why is it not distributed equally to the counties across the state?
It's not per student. That's not just each kid is worth. There's a coupon for this much money in their formula. There's other factors.
Absolutely.
right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Because there's
Based on who gets income levels and other things that are going on.
Property tax.
property tax and
There's a
because-
very complicated formula because there is so much attached to the kids.
It's one of those
Yes.
things like Wall Street where there are rules. No one really knows what the rules are.
But there are some
like
rules.
I'm
But you can't
vocationally
break 'em.
licensed, so I'm a vocational teacher. So depending on
Does
the
that mean you get extra vacation time? What does that mean?
it never worked out that way.
You only have to go to work 180 days a year.
right.
What are you crying about?
Yeah, right. Anyway. So the schools that I taught in got more money per student that they had sitting in my seat.
yes. So yes.
But that varied too, depending on which class it was. But then I had schools saying, well, we just found out that X, Y, and Z classes make more than X, Y, and Z classes. So now we're going to have you teach more of these. And by the way, we're going to put 35 kids in them too.
Absolutely.
And most of them have IEPs, and this should be fun.
I bet it
Yes.
was a party.
Oh, it was.
See, because to me, whenever we were talking earlier about charter schools, vouchers, and all of that, the $10,000 per student head model, it made sense to me thinking about it. You have this many
It sounds
kids
very
in your
reasonable.
school,
I mean-
you get this amount of funding, and it's what we've all agreed upon, and that seems fair. But then you start attaching, well, unless the kid got a 70%. Unless you have this many of this certain type of class in this certain subject.
If your graduation rate falls below
Right.
this, if
Then
you've
you
got
lose
this
funding.
much free and reduced, then it falls to this.
Yes.
There's so many different variables that go into those formulas.
And again, they change.
And we're talking
Often.
just a little bit of a reset for those that are joining us. You're listening to the Boss Hog of Liberty podcast. We're based in East Central Indiana. We're talking about something that's a big deal in the state of Indiana. We have listeners all over the country. Jonathan Skomsky is watching from Albany, New York, and he's saying that he personally has at least a dozen friends who have teaching degrees, who basically got out of teaching because of the poor system and the even worse pay. And that's in New York State, not just an Indiana
No.
issue. The stuff we talk about here is obviously relevant to this area, but it's
Across the
national,
country.
right?
Yes.
Absolutely.
So,
Right,
but we're
whenever-
going to try to solve all of Indiana's problems, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk a little bit about the history of teachers becoming involved with politics in the state of Indiana. I remember in 2012, I was still in high school, and
He is a baby.
This is what
I
happens
was
to me
in
every
high
week.
school. Yep, I was in high school.
I
in
was standing at the
2012.
polling place trying to get elected.
My mom still worked at the school, and because of my mom being in the school system, and my grandpa also taught at Newcastle, so teachers have been close friends to my family for a long time, and everyone's talking about Glenda Ritz, and she is the
was
savior
so
of
cool.
education.
It was super cool. That was
So-
yes.
And my dad is very, very much on the right. He's a Republican. Well, he's not like a Republican Party member, but for most of my life, he
watches
voted
Fox
for
News.
conservative people. He doesn't really watch news and get into politics too much. He's just a conservative fellow. And even he was like, yeah, we need someone like Glenda Ritz at the head of education for the state. And a lot of that was pushed by this grassroots campaign that she had.
It was
working with teachers. So were you guys involved? Either one of you guys involved with her?
In 2012, I was running for a council seat, I believe, and I was
How'd that work out for you?
number of about the same as it always does. And I was standing outside the polling place, and I hit a number of them. And I think in my district there were probably a dozen polling places. At that time, we didn't have the vote centers that we do now, but you would have there were 42 election locations in Henry County. Every polling place I visited had people that were engaged and out there talking and working for Glenda Ritz. So if people didn't know or didn't care about the secretary or the superintendent of public instruction race, they knew that this person that they know that's from their community said, hey, they grabbed him by the shirt collar and said, hey, this is important to me.
Right.
You need to vote for this lady because it's good for your kids, right? Or it's good for your grandkids, or it's good for my kids. And that grassroots effort was happening. So I started seeing all of these red signs go out about a month ago here. And I think there's a very real opportunity for change in education in Indiana if that grassroots, and it looks like there's going to be. You got over 11,000 people that have said yes,
it's
they're
actually
coming.
bumped up to like 13.
Yeah.
There's
And I think
500,000
77
students.
school corps.
There's 500,000 students
over
in
Indiana
Indiana school.
Southeastern jumped in.
Did they?
They
Yes.
So a massive wave is coming of people that want to get involved. I think in my advice, take it for what it's worth, but my advice is to try to stay as nonpartisan as possible.
Absolutely.
And not to let this become, hey, you need to vote for all these Democrats or Republicans in the fall, but these are the issues we care about, and have those people turn out and talk about those issues and care about those issues with the folks that are in office and those that are running for office. And I think you've actually got a very real opportunity to make some changes. But that's
helpful.
the biggest
That's
concern
helpful.
that I see is that, hey, it becomes really partisan and people pick their sides and they quit talking to each other.
And for me, this has never been political.
Right.
I always say, I don't care what party you're in. I'm going to look at what you have to say about education. That's what we should vote for, is education. It doesn't matter Republican, Democrat. We need education and educational people in the government that have an education background, so we can fix what's going on.
We haven't been super successful with putting politicians into positions that are making legislative decisions for educators.
No.
Alicia Nathan says that the boys said goodnight, mommy.
Oh,
So
they
apparently,
think mommy's on TV.
well, we're on a lot of TVs. Through the magic of Roku's and Google Chromes, we are on a lot of big screens right now in houses.
You are indeed.
We are. Facebook Live is an incredible thing. We are the nightly news for some folks.
My biggest question.
We're bigger than Survivor in my parents' house.
I would hope so.
I don't know. Survivor Night's a big deal. At
Survivor kind of died in like 2014.
Those are hate crime words. And
It's a good thing Joyce already gave us our baby shower gift this past week.
Yes.
My big question with Glenda Ritz is, do either of you guys view her race in 2012 as kind of the spark that began people talking about the issues with education in Indiana?
I was thinking about this actually last night. That was such a cool, Jennifer and I are like, that was awesome, right?
And I think everybody that was involved remembers where you were when you got the numbers.
You heard, right? And she gave her speech and
he looked so shocked, and we were like,
awesome. Yeah. And then
not so much.
And then you realize that
I think it was like a balloon.
Sometimes a political elected official is a mascot more than an actual policymaker, right?
Right. And I think for several years that was so deflating. I mean, really, that was such a cool movement. And I remember just the excitement around, Glenda Ritz getting elected. And then it was like, oh, but there it goes. And I think here we go again. We finally gotten back to the point where it's like, that confidence that was kind of shut down. We're ready to overcome it.
Yes.
Would you tell Chase you're ready to be heard again?
I'm ready to be heard again.
I hope not.
Now, see, we will no longer have another Glenda Ritz. in
Correct.
state of
The
Indiana.
superintendent of public
No,
instruction,
yeah.
and this goes back to even when Mitch Daniels was running for office the first time as governor, and I think that maybe Jill Long Thompson, when she ran for governor, said, "Hey, there was a sacrificial lamb that ran as Democrat that was going to resign and let the Democratic governor appoint whoever they wanted to." I think the Republicans losing that seat, Sue Ellen Reed had it for years, for generations,
Yeah.
and then Tony Bennett replaced. Glenda
Yeah.
Ritz surprised them by winning, and then all of a sudden the Republicans kind of changed their mind. The incumbents changed their mind and said, actually, we just want to be able to appoint this person. So Jennifer McCormick, Newcastle
And
native.
until
Yes.
John Gregg is elected for governor.
Well,
next
no,
year.
what he's not running this time.
That's true.
Myers and Melton are running, I believe. And hopefully we'll have them on the show next year as their campaigns get wound up. But McCormick will finish her term, and then after that, the governor will get to appoint that position. Like it or not, I've always been in favor of the people having a voice for that, but it's somewhat a cabinet level position. So there is an argument that's been made, and that's the law is it's going to be going forward that the superintendent of public instruction is going to be an appointed job. That said, we talked about it a minute ago. In my utopia, we have no federal Department of Education, and the state doesn't have that much effect. And your local school board for Newcastle or Tri or Shenandoah or Knightstown or Hagerstown or Stony Creek, Blue River, those areas elect their own folks, and they make the decisions. My perfect world, but that's not the world we live in, right?
It is nice. It sounds nice, though.
It does.
Doesn't it sound lovely? Yes. And they tried to scooch it up. They tried to make it so that it would be, or was it successful?
It was successful. I think it's at the end of her theoretical term. So
they
whenever
did,
her
because
time,
it was going to be in 225.
I believe so.
And so whenever she's
When her time
I
ends, it
apologize.
will be it.
Finished.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing is that she's not seeking re-election or was going to be done. So at this point, it would be either Holcomb or whoever succeeds
Gets to
Eric
pick.
Holcomb would be making that selection next.
It's
Get your
one of
resumes
those-
ready.
It's one of those things for me personally. Whenever I look at it and I first heard about it, I thought this seems really. It seems so dirty to take a position that the people put into
Yes.
power
Yes.
and make it to where the political insiders put them in. But whenever I look at it without my personal bias attached, it's like, yeah, it is kind of a cabinet position. I understand. And now going forward, the Secretary of Education or the Superintendent of Public Education is now attached to the governor's race. So now you are, just like we heard with every person that said they hated Donald Trump, but I'm going to vote for him because of the appointments. That is now also an argument for governor's race, and it could sway much more of the political realm of the state of Indiana than what it was previously. I think
In 2004, the 20 or 21-year-old version of me, college kid at Ivy Tech, had Mitch Daniels come and speak to our group at Ivy Tech. And that was the question I asked. I said, "Hey, why do you want to take this away from us?" And Daniels' answer to me was, because I'm going to be judged by it, right? I'm judged on education and the performance of the kids of the state of Indiana. So that's why he was advocating it for that time. And then it took, it took Glenda Ritz winning for it to actually get the political momentum to actually happen.
I think though Tuesday, 11,000 teachers showing up downtown. I think that speaks volumes, right? Because if we can get those folks back out to vote in this next election, they're going to be forced to take a good hard look at the policies and what they're doing with Indiana's education system.
even if you just scare them a little bit.
Yeah.
So, Alicia, you're incubating another one. What's got you? What's got you saying I want to get in this fight and I want to go get involved in this conversation now? Right? You've got a family. You got 2 young ones at home. You're here giving up your Thursday night to hang out with us. What's your motivator in all of this? Now's your opportunity, or now's why you want to go to the State House and be a part of this?
Yeah, I love kids. And I totally see what our youth are up against, just because of the day and age they're growing up in. And what right do we have to take away a quality education, and a quality future for those kids? We have to be their voice. So, my babies will be 5 in 2 weeks, and then I'm incubating. Another
Cooking right along down there.
That's right.
Still on track for February, right?
I sure hope so.
This takes a lot longer than Chick It Out program at 4-H.
Oh man,
9 months is a whole lot longer than what you think.
Right? It is. I've got 902 4-Hers, in Wayne County.
That's fantastic. That's
Right?
more than double
That's
what we have in
awesome.
Henry County.
I tell you,
We're in the 400 to 500 range.
we have a really good time over there.
Jonathan Ferris must be doing a hell of a job.
I hope he's
Just laughter. Just laughter. Jonathan was one of our extension educators when I was a 4-H'er here, and now he's hanging out with you guys in Wayne County.
He is, as a full-time ag educator.
Yes. And CED, right?
Yes, he is.
He's the grand poobah of extension.
He is.
He takes the fall when the high stakes testing goes bad for the 4-H kids, and they can't tell you what the where the wither is on a goat.
Right. Yeah,
All right.
that would be it.
Doesn't know the wither from the escutcheon, and neither does Dakota.
Nope.
That just sounds dirty. I'm sorry.
I never even thought about it like that.
This is parts of an animal on the Boss Hog of Liberty. You get it all here. I told you, we promised you're going to learn something new. You learn what an IEP is, and you learn the parts of a goat.
Yeah.
All right. So that got you involved.
I love kids.
All right.
I want to see our next generation be successful. Truly.
Very cool. Jennifer, what was your motivator in all this?
I love kids and I love teaching. And some of this is breaking my heart. I mean, we're losing teachers every day that can change kids' lives. And I'm concerned that we're not going to be able to replace them if we don't change what's happening now. So, and I want to keep being able to do what I'm doing right now. So I've done this a long time. It's the coolest thing besides my husband and my children. Love you guys. You're the best. But I don't feel like I'm going to work every day. I love what I do. And I think it's, more people should be able to do it. And I think it's tragic that it's going the direction it's going.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for joining us real quick. I have a small, 3 minutes of the show I want to dedicate to this because
It won't be 3 minutes.
I found a tiny little Newcastle angle, and I'm going to work it in here. And this is theater. And you know my love for theater, Dakota.
The theater?
Yeah, theater.
Are you a thespian?
Do you know who Zach Veach is? This made the Indianapolis Star today.
I know that name.
You do not.
You've had to have talked about him on the show previously. That's the only way I would know it.
Yes. So Zach Veach is one of the Andretti Autosport drivers. He's run the Indy 500 a few times. Local Ohio guy, American. Stands about
That's why
2
I
foot.
bet on him to win in May.
He stands.
Is that who I'm thinking of?
You may have picked his name. That would have been very well. I mean, listen, Zach Burcham probably would tell you you're crazy to think Zach Veach is going to win the 500, but you do you.
You guys draw?
It's like me betting on IndyCar is like whenever Chase was on for the Patreon portion and talked
gotcha.
about horse betting.
Okay.
Yeah,
We draw for
idea.
the Indy 500.
Yeah.
You just kind of.
When we do the big infield party, we do the draw, and everybody gets there's money to be made.
Oh, absolutely.
No skill. You just
$25 at a time.
Oh my God, you big spenders over there.
Total.
Next year, I'm putting a proxy.
So
You know what? I don't think teachers need a raise.
God, I'm like in the $5 club over here, just throwing out Andrew Jackson plus something.
$25 is our pot.
So the Indianapolis Opera has a deal going on this weekend, and it's called the Elixir of Love, and Zach Veach is going to be in it. There's a big story in the Indy Star, and if you're a Patreon member, it's linked to it, and the whole story is there. But he's not going to talk, and he's not going to sing.
He's just an extra.
He's just going to be there, and he's going to be out there when they roll out a car. The car is a Maxwell. Do you know why that matters, Dakota?
No.
Maxwells were built here. Remember the Maxwell factory
I did not
was the
know that.
Chrysler factory back in the day?
Yeah.
So
Did not know that.
that was the original Maxwell location.
There's a town named after him.
So you remember the Maxwell House restaurant on Broad Street, which is where
There
Primo is?
Yeah.
That's why it was Maxwell. So they're going to have a
I
Maxwell.
thought it was the coffee.
They're going to have
Or town.
they're going to have a Maxwell, and it's
A real one.
yeah, a real legitimate Maxwell. There's a photo in the Indy Star from their walkthrough, and it's based on it's based on an old 1800s, yada yada yada, all the arts crap that nobody cares about. But it's based on the life of Mario Andretti as well.
It's owned by George Holman, who used to own the Speedway.
Yes,
The Maxwell itself is owned by George Holman.
Oh.
That's neat.
Yes,
That is neat.
There's all kinds of cool stuff, and it's got, like I said, it's got a Henry County tie because of Maxwell being the predecessor to Chrysler here.
It originally sold for $750 when it was manufactured, which is equivalent to $20,000 today.
So check that out. It's going to be going on in Carmel. They tried to get Mario Andretti. Mario was busy because it's kind of based on his life and in Italy growing up in Lucca back in the day, which is now Croatia. If we're studying how states got their shapes. Not really a state, but that's the way it goes. Anyway, check that out.
We said geography wasn't
Well,
good.
no, I thought
No math.
Same,
No geography.
Same, but
Political
different.
boundaries.
Puerto Rico, Washington D.C.
We had a whole thing on Puerto Rico last week. We brought in Mason Rottinghouse,
I struggled this evening.
the student from Purdue and Tri High, who's going to be a pharmacist, who we put on the spot
yeah.
for his blatant racism in Purdue, not understanding how Puerto Rican driver's licenses work. So go check out episode 137 for that one.
I'm going to have
I have
to
not
now.
listened to 137, so I need to do that.
Yeah, we got work to do. All right.
It's towards the end.
Yeah, it was towards the end. We bury the lead on that one. All right. Alicia, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
You have
It
any
was so
final
much
thoughts
fun.
for us? Something to promote? If you don't, I'm going to mention something I want you to promote
Okay.
because I've got your captive audience. Do you have anything you need to talk about?
Well,
4-H enrollment's probably going on right
that's
now.
exactly where I was headed. Statewide 4-H enrollment. So call your local extension office. You have until January 15th. in.4honline.com.
So how do
That sounded just like a commercial.
if you
That was
join-
amazing.
if you join 4-H in Wayne County, you get to play with go-karts,
You do. Electric go-karts.
electric go-karts, and you raced at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
We did. Second in the world, year 1. 8th in the world, year 2.
You're going backwards.
Well, there were some technical difficulties. And we're working on a shoestring budget.
So you need sponsors.
We do, but we have a pretty exciting one in the works. I can't talk about it just yet.
Big Wayne County news.
Regional news.
I will tell you.
I can tell you it's not Boss Hog of Liberty.
I will tell you that I have
Although
publicly
we'll slap a
shamed.
decal on there for $50.
You guys are Wayne County, and I've publicly shamed Brad Brewer at Perfect Circle Credit Union, based in Wayne County in Hagerstown, because if you look at any Indy car from the 40s, 50s, or 60s, they all had the Perfect Circle piston
Oh,
rings,
yeah? Okay.
right? They were based in Wayne County. I think that would be a great opportunity for Perfect Circle to get back involved with the local community and the local motorsports, and in their heritage as the Perfect Circle Credit Union maybe got involved
Not a
with the Wayne
bad
County
idea.
Extension.
Not a bad
We have
idea.
to do some matchmaking.
We might.
All right. So in May, you guys will be out at the Speedway running your electric go-kart.
We will. And hopefully have the middle school program back up and running too here in a couple months.
How many students are involved last
So
year?
on our high school team, we can take up to 15. And we've got enough. I mean, there's enough interest there. We could field a couple of cars, but unfortunately the funding's not there.
Got to find sponsors. It's like real racing
They're about, and I have this number correct. They're about $10,000. So
for the cart.
yeah, for the cart, year 1. So
Oh,
it
my.
is not a cheap,
Yeah.
endeavor.
That's big timing.
Yeah, it's so much fun.
Guffey,
We raced him on Jeremiah's wedding day.
we
Yes,
did.
sir.
Well, we were carbon burning.
You
man.
gotta
we had
you-
gas carts.
Yeah, you got to
Yeah.
come out and they're lithium. They're awesome.
I would love to
It's
do
so
that.
much fun.
You could
should.
hear probably way better on one of those.
Oh yeah, and we've got all kinds of data boxes, and you can learn anything you want to know.
Let us know.
If I
We may
sponsor,
come out.
if I sponsor a cart, can I drive one?
Absolutely.
All right.
Beezer Creek might have to sponsor a go-kart. Beezer Creek Restoration.
We got stickers, baby.
We'll slap one on there.
All right, Guffey.
I absolutely have nothing to do.
Isn't that nice to have nothing?
Yeah.
The election's over.
I have
You have nothing
worries.
on your mind. You have nothing to be concerned about. You're just coasting.
Just coasting right now.
Just peaceful, easy living.
coast until January.
What's January?
You'll never know.
That's why we're such good friends, Chris.
Yep.
All right, Jennifer. Thank you for joining us.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I had a really good time. It was nice to meet you guys.
We didn't hurt at all, right?
No,
This was fine.
This was really fun.
So you got anything to promote? You got clubs you want kids to join? You've got you want to tell people how and when to show up on Tuesday next week?
Tuesday, Red for Ed, 9 o'clock to 2 o'clock. Wear red, support public education.
All right.
If you are going to the State House or Red for Ed, you can take a sign. However, it has to be limited
Yes.
to 2 feet by 2
Yes.
feet, and it cannot be carried on a stick.
No sticks. No sticks. They
What
were very
if
specific.
teachers band together and
What
brought
if it's
in
a
tape?
PVC pipe?
They
And they-
actually said that. They said,
You bring your little
bring
signs.
6 of your friends and hold them together at different points of time.
Yeah.
So,
We're going to stick it to the man.
yeah, we are.
Your
We're going to
rules.
put a big sign
That's
together.
the libertarians in us starting to think about, okay, you made a rule, and the racing
That's
people,
right.
how can I get around
How
this
do
rule?
we get around this?
The rule
You
says
gave, me
Way.
you gave me a box. Now let me work around it. That's
right.
that's the way the
Sure.
world works. Dakota, anything?
I didn't have any final thoughts except for, well, actually, nope, that doesn't work either. We talked about it during the show. Nope. Happens a lot on this show, increasingly, where I will accidentally bring up my final thoughts during the actual show because it's on my mind.
It's all good. It's the
Stop
final
doing
thoughts
that.
are just the time to clean up stuff that you left
Right.
hanging out there that you needed to get
Oh.
off your chest. Or there we go.
I guess I should say that earlier, whenever we were talking about Rob, I put words in his mouth, and I guess I shouldn't do that because I really don't know what he's going to say whenever he comes on next week. But I just assumed, and we know what happens whenever you assume. So
I look forward to Rob coming on and calling me Lion Chair. It'll be great. It's always fun.
he's coming on with Stephen Vitito, who has Stephen been on the show before?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my gosh,
Yes.
I'm so excited. I'm
Yeah.
listening.
So Stephen and Rob will be on next week. Stephen is the local welding teacher for the Newcastle Career Center. He also teaches adult welding if you want to check those out. My brother-in-law is taking his adult welding class that he teaches in conjunction with Ivy Tech right now, and he said it's great. It's 5 weeks.
It's like $400.
It's going to be after work for everybody.
Pretty reasonable.
So, yeah.
He's done amazing things with that program.
I
The whole
has.
Newcastle Career Center
Is amazing.
Is amazing.
It's awesome.
It is. Yeah.
final thoughts for me. I lost very shamefully on Monday Night Football in fantasy football to Guffey.
Yes, you
in
did.
a very very sad turn of events. There was,
It was
a
wonderful.
fourth quarter touchdown with your running back, and I lost. And now I'm not in the playoff hunt right now. I'm sitting on the outside looking in.
You are. How's it feel?
It's not
I'm
good.
looking at you
My
through the glass.
my kicker is
Don't
on.
know how much
My
time has
kicker
passed.
is I've got the Packers kicker, and they're not playing this week, so I just had to sign the. I think I signed the Browns kicker tonight, so I'm looking for some field goals from Cleveland, I guess.
Please take this with the utmost respect, but I hope you don't get that opportunity. I'm a Steelers fan and I'm watching the score right now and I'm so sad.
It's 7-0 Pittsburgh as we're watching live in the studio. I did attend my only Colts game of the year on Sunday, and I was sitting in the 500 level on the glass, and I'm glad I held back the urge to jump because there was nothing to keep me other than I don't know why I didn't jump because it hurt. It was painful. I watched Brian Hoyer throw multiple interceptions, and I watched Adam Vinatieri miss extra points, and it was just. Colts season is not going well, so we'll see if they can beat the Jags. But you got the Jags, and then 4 days later we got Houston. Colts have never won without T.Y. Hilton, and they didn't have T.Y. last week, or the week before, or this week.
I don't know. Who that
And maybe
is.
not the next week. Yeah, and that's Dakota on sports. All right,
Jeremiah, I do have one final thought. I
there
just
you
remembered.
go. All right,
Mentioning Rob Kendall.
Kickback Kendall.
Yep. Potentially next week might be my last show. Me and Rob's working out a deal. He doesn't know it yet. But
He was last time. I'll say it. I'll just put it out here. Last time Rob was here, he was pretty much hitting on you.
I feel
He
like
was recruiting you.
It was
Right.
To be, he's producer for Chicks on the Right. You're producer for us, and I think he wants you to be his assistant producer.
I will do it.
I reminded you today that we give you free parking, and at Emmis you don't get free parking.
I want to
That's
remind
true.
you.
He pays.
Not likely.
That big AM terrestrial radio money.
What we can do for you is whenever my baby's born and we take our hiatus, is you will have to keep working just like we require these guys to keep working. Unpaid, your internship will be there.
15 hours at least.
Yeah, we do have a real quick a programming announcement. We do Thursday shows, and whoever the hell is in charge of the calendar put Thanksgiving on a Thursday this year, which I was objecting to, but I don't have any control over it. So
I blame Mitch Daniels.
Yeah, I feel like daylight saving time is involved with this problem, but. So we're going to have a show on the 21st on Thursday, and then I guess we'll just go the Tuesday the 26th. So write that one down. That's when you'll see us. So the 21st, 26th, and then we'll figure it out from there. Thank you guys very much for listening. We'll see y'all next week.
Thank you for listening to the Boss Hog of Liberty, which is part of the We Are Libertarians Network. I am Chris Spangle, and I am the founder of this network, and I invite you to listen to all of our shows, which you can find at wearelibertarians.com or by searching for these in your podcatcher. The flagship show is the We Are Libertarians podcast, where we apply libertarian principles to current events. The Brian Nichols Show is a conversation amongst Republicans, Democrats, Libertarians, Independents, as they talk about what is happening in the news. And we have many other podcasts like The Chris Spangle Show, Upward, The Cost, Raw Audio Politics, Miranda's World, and Tad Talk, which is quite a ride. So check all of these out. Go to wearelibertarians.com and you can check out all of our great podcasts. Thanks for listening. Thank you for listening to the We Are Libertarians Network. Get our other shows at wearelibertarians.com.